Welcome to Meaningfulness, Engineering Purpose in a Complex World podcast series. I'm Djeff B., Principal Architect at Meaningfulness Media Group, where we build rigorous frameworks to uncover objective meaning through authentic connection, ethical systems thinking, and responsible stewardship in an age of AI and informational chaos. If you're seeking evidence-based insights on philosophy, psychology, and human flourishing, you're in the right place. Let's begin.
Today, we are diving deep into a question that really sits at the heart of what it means to be human. What's the connection between living a good life and living a meaningful one? We're talking about the ethics of meaning.
So let's just jump right in with a question that, it might feel a little bit uncomfortable. Is this whole modern quest to find your purpose actually kind of selfish? I mean, we're told constantly to follow our passion, find what makes us happy, but where do our duties to other people fit into all of that?
And this really lays out that internal tug-of-war perfectly. On one side, you've got that personal pursuit. It's the voice in your head asking, what do I want? But then on the other side, there's our ethical responsibility, which asks a totally different question. What is the right thing to do? It can feel like these two are pulling you in completely opposite directions.
But what if that's just the wrong way of looking at it entirely? What if the most fulfilling, the most deeply meaningful life you can possibly live is the most ethical one? What if these aren't two different paths at all, but they're actually the exact same road? Now that is the core idea we're going to dig into. So, first up, meaning's moral compass. We're going to take a look at how our sense of ethics doesn't just guide what we do, but it might actually guide our whole search for purpose.
To really get our heads around this, we need to see how this whole idea came to be. So we're going to go on a little tour through the last few decades and trace some of the key ideas that have really shaped how we think about the link between meaning and morality.
Which brings us right to our journey through ideas. Let's check out 5 pivotal moments that completely changed this conversation. Okay, here's our roadmap. We're going to kick things off in the 1950s, then travel all the way through to the 2000s. We're going to meet some of the heavy hitters in psychology and ethics, and you'll see how each one adds another crucial piece to this puzzle. Our exploration starts all the way back in 1957 with a guy named Leon Festinger. He gave us this brilliant concept called cognitive dissonance. You know that feeling, right? That icky, uncomfortable mental static you get when your actions just don't line up with what you believe?
Let me give you a perfect example. Say you truly value environmental sustainability, but you keep finding yourself buying fast fashion. That feeling of inner conflict, that dissonance, it's not just annoying. It is a powerful catalyst. The drive to fix that, to get your actions and your values back in sync, that's one of the very first steps toward building a life that actually feels meaningful.
Okay, now let's jump forward to 1981 and see how Lawrence Kohlberg built on this. He suggested that our moral reasoning actually grows in stages. So when we're young, we might find meaning just by avoiding punishment or getting a reward. Then, as we get older, it's about getting social approval. But at the highest stage, we find meaning by serving something way bigger than ourselves, these huge abstract principles like justice and universal rights. So our search for meaning literally matures as our ethics do.
But wait, just 1 year later, Carol Gilligan comes along and adds this crucial new layer. She argued that Kohlberg's model, which she called an ethic of justice, was really only half the story. She proposed an ethic of care, which finds meaning not just in abstract rules, but in relationships, in empathy, in community. And this is so important because it shows there isn't just one single ethical path to a meaningful life.
Now we're going to leap forward to the 90s with the psychologist Martin Seligman. He introduced this idea of learned optimism and basically argued that optimism isn't just some personality trait you're either born with or you're not. It's actually a mindset you can build, and he argued that choosing to build it is an ethical choice.
So, why an ethical choice? Well, because optimism is the fuel for action. Think about a social activist. Their belief that change is even possible, their optimism, that's what keeps them going. And that work, in turn, gives them this incredibly deep sense of purpose. It all kicks off with the choice to believe that what you do actually matters.
Our last stop is 2006 with Jonathan Haidt. Now, he argues that our moral compass isn't just a single needle pointing north. It's way more like a set of taste buds with all these different moral flavors, like care, fairness, loyalty, and others. We all have them, but we all tend to prioritize them a little differently. And this has a direct line to where we find purpose.
For instance, if you're someone who really values that care foundation, it makes perfect sense that you might find incredible meaning working as a nurse or a doctor. But if you're someone who values authority and tradition, you might find that same sense of purpose in a leadership role, upholding important structures in society. Our core ethics are literally signposts pointing us toward our purpose.
Okay, so we have just traveled through 5 huge ideas spanning almost 50 years. What does it all mean when we put it all together? That brings us to the emerging picture.
The best way to think about it is like this. Each of these studies we looked at is like a single thread. It's interesting on its own, sure, but when you start to weave them all together, you get this rich, beautiful, complex tapestry. And it shows just how deeply our ethics and our sense of meaning are all intertwined.
And looking at that big tapestry, 4 key themes really start to stand out. First, this is a symbiotic relationship. Growing ethically and searching for meaning, they feed each other. Second, there are diverse frameworks. There is no one-size-fits-all path. Third, psychology is everything. Our own inner world is the workshop where we build these meaningful choices. And finally, this is an evolving idea. The conversation is always moving, always changing.
And that brings us to our last section. Let's bring this all home, because this isn't just some academic exercise. This is about your meaningful journey. And you know what? That journey is not over, not by a long shot. There are these huge, fascinating questions we're all still grappling with. Most of the research we've looked at is from the West. How do other cultures see this? What about technology like AI? How is that going to change our ethics and where we find meaning? These are the questions we're all exploring right now, together.
But in the end, the real takeaway is this. The hunt for a meaningful life, it's not a solo mission. It is deeply, fundamentally interconnected with our choices, with our values, and with the impact we have on the world and the people around us.
So I'll just leave you with this final thought. If your life is a story about finding meaning, then your ethical choices are the ink. The only question left is, what will your next chapter say?
That's all for this episode. Thank you for joining me on this exploration. If these ideas resonate, continue your journey toward objective meaning and authentic connection at meaningfulness.com.au, where you'll find materials and resources to engineer purpose in your life. Until next time, let's build something meaningful.